Yes, hi gamers, here from Hamburg. We are on a preview event to Man of Medan, the new game of Supermassive Games. Well, we could also say it's Until Dawn 2, or is that wrong?
No, we can't say that. Man of Medan is the first game in the Dark Pictures anthology.
Yeah.
So the Dark Pictures anthology is a series of cinematic horror games. It is in the style that people would be familiar with from games like Until Dawn, where you kind of make choices and you explore creepy environments and you run away from scary things and try and survive. All your characters can live and all your characters can die. So people will be familiar with the style, but it's a completely new setting, it's a new cast, and it's the first of many games to come.
And these episodes don't have to do anything with each other.
Each episode is a completely new game, and you can play them. You can play them in any order. If you've missed a couple of games, don't worry about that. You can buy one and play it and have great fun with it. And if you like it, you can go back and do the other ones. There are some connecting strands in the episodes. Actually, we decided that all the games will be in the same universe. So sometimes you will find little hints and Easter eggs in the games that relate to other games in the series, and they'll be quite difficult to find, they'll be subtle, but we think some people will have fun kind of looking those out. And there's a character called the Curator who you meet, who introduces you to the game. He's this kind of old guy, very formal. He lives in this place called the Repository, full of books. He welcomes you to the game.
He's kind of storyteller in the game.
Yeah, he's the storyteller. He welcomes you, tells you about the story, and every so often you'll come back and see him again. He'll ask you how you think things are going and whether you've made the right choices, and he can give little hints and things like that.
But besides the Curator is also, well, kind of similarity to Until Dawn. Some ways there is one thing that is pretty much different to Until Dawn, because today we played the first episode, or part of the first episode, in co-op mode. And well, it's a very interesting thing because at the same time the players play different characters and switching roles. So I was diving with Julia, for example, and the other one was on board, and I thought, well, the guy beside me is will be played by the other person. But that brings me to a question to that. I would like to experience both sides, what's happening on the boat and what's happening underwater. So won't the people miss anything because of that?
I don't think so. So you can play Man of Medan in a number of different modes. So one is solo mode, which is a full single player game. And in fact, in solo mode, you do play both sides of that. So you do get the whole story, or most of the story there. It's not quite all of it, but you play the dive bit and you play the bit on deck. And you can play the whole game in solo mode. We have this new online two-player co-op mode, which we call Shared Story, and in Shared Story you can play with a friend and you can play the whole story through with a friend. Obviously the story is different every time you play because of all the branching, and sometimes you're together with that friend in an environment and you're doing things together, you're making choices, you're having a conversation. Sometimes you are in the same location but you're doing different things, you're exploring around, you're looking at things in the world. And you're kind of a bit free from each other, and sometimes you're in completely different locations and you have no idea what's going on with the other player, and when you join up again you can exchange information or not. There's another mode that we announced today, which is a movie night, and that's another multiplayer mode where you can actually sit around and play with a bunch of friends in local multiplayer. You can invite your friends around, play the game together, each look after a character, assign a character, and that's a lot of fun. It's a kind of party mode. Again, it's the same story, although it will change depending on what choices people make, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, there are sequences where I played Connor, for example, and the other player was playing Connor too. Or am I wrong?
At different points in the game.
Yes,
that's right. Yes, that's right. Yes.
So and because I changed their well, the character,
Yep.
if you want so, in the game because of my decisions. So we need to, well, when we make him not so much a womanizer as I did, so I have to talk with my player, with the other player for, well, no, don't say anything stupid about women or something like that.
Well, I mean, people in real life, people change their minds about things,
Yeah.
and people act in different ways in different situations. So, yeah, you're both working together
Yeah.
to tell this story and to find these characters. Conrad will always, in a sense, be Conrad. You know, at the core, he's a specific type of person, but you're kind of steering him in different directions, and you've both got that responsibility at different points in the game.
Well, I had much fun making him a womanizer. So his talking with Liz, was her name?
Fliss, yeah.
Fliss, yes, was very nice. I had much to laugh. Well, but if we compare it, so it's a totally different game mode, the co-op mode, or do you experience, and when you play it on your own, more or less the same? So you play both parts, you play underwater and you play the part with the other character on
Yeah,
board.
it's the same story, and the story goes through some key beats, especially early on. So that scene where you dive, you'll get that in solo mode, and you'll get that in the co-op mode, and you'll get that in movie night. You know, but it will play out differently depending on what you do, because the narrative is very branching and it responds to what players choose to do.
Well, with all these games, or more or less similar games like Until Dawn maybe, or Heavy Rain and the other titles of Quantic Dream, well, there is a certain point, probably something over 50% of the game, when you're first being able to die in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So would it have been possible to die within the sequence we played today? So in the first 90 minutes of the game?
Yes, and you'll find that that happened to some people today.
Okay.
So Conrad can get killed in the 90 minutes that you played today, or he can survive, and the game will branch depending on what happens there, and scenes will be unlocked or locked out depending on what happens. And there are other things that you can't see the consequences of in the build that you've just played, but that you caused quite big repercussions in the game one way or another. But which will come back in later scenes to haunt you.
Yeah. Well, there was one thing I didn't like about Until Dawn, because, well, I'm a player, I want to be successful, I want to, well, survive, bring all the characters at life to the end. Well, on the other side, I want to see how they get killed in the game. So that's, well, it doesn't really fit together for me.
I think it does with the replayability. So we didn't know when we made Until Dawn whether people would just play it through once and have a great story. Well, we thought that's what they would do, but in fact people replayed it heavily. So as soon as people had played it through, they'd immediately jump back into the chapter select and have another go and try and save the people that they lost, and then they play it again and try and kill everyone. It's a very natural thing to do. So we have that same system in Medan. We have a system of cause and effect, so that you can look in the front end and kind of see what you did that caused certain major game events, and you can go back and say, well, I'll try doing something different this time, see what happens.
Well, there's maybe one more thing about the scene in the last 30 minutes when they all in the back room and try to get free.
Yep.
So, well, Julia tried to get off the wrist and well, it doesn't really work. So because the hands of her friend have still been together.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about there.
No,
she finds a thing to
yes,
clip it, yeah.
later. But the first try with her teeth, and well, I thought it must have gone to at this certain point.
Oh, I'm not quite. Do you know what that's about, Greg?
Sure.
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, she tries to untie her hands, but she can't untie her hands.
So
right?
she's
stuck there. Yeah,
she just wasn't able to that. Okay. Well, concerning decisions, well, how huge is the influence of well, just minor decisions like, well, if she says no when he gets Julia the ring, for example.
Okay, so. It's definitely the most branching game we've ever done. That's one of the things we set out to do. Once right at the start of the anthology, was to say this is going to be the most branching game we've ever done, much more branching than Until Dawn. But also, the two-player component makes it even more branching because there's another player also making decisions which will branch the game further. We've always said, and it's one of our key rules, is that every decision matters. We never cheat on that. The game's watching everything that you do, and it's branching on everything that you do. Sometimes those branches are massive, and they can cause the death of a character or a major kind of the whole story to move in a different direction. Sometimes they're quite subtle, and they're quite they can be seemingly quite small. They could be just the way someone talks to you or the way someone thinks about you. But the other thing we do is sometimes those branches are very long-reaching. So a decision right at the start of the game that seems quite innocuous and doesn't seem to have had much impact can come back later and have a massive impact. And you never know. We're always, because we have this promise that every character can live and every character can die, you never know when you're safe. You never know when a decision doesn't really matter. They all matter.
Well, there is one decision where you can find one of these pictures with the look into the future. For Julia, when she goes up too fast, probably she will have a problem later. Does it make a difference if I would just wait once because she has 2 times there's a possibility for her to go up?
Well, I'm not going to give away any spoilers for the bits of the game that you haven't played yet, but certainly the premonitions, the pictures you're talking about where you get a hint of the future, those are things that might happen or might not happen depending on what you do. And so they're kind of there to help you if you can interpret them. Then they are not obvious always what they mean, you know, and the idea is that you think about every decision. Every decision is important. So I'm not going to tell people what to do in that situation.
Well, in Until Dawn, I know from many players they played it with their girlfriend or with someone else, and let her friend decide which decision to take. Did you ever think about making it possible that the players have to take decisions directly together, because it's
well, one of the things we found when Until Dawn launched, it also coincided with this kind of streaming taking off. So a lot of people streamed it as they played it, and we saw that people played in lots of different ways. And one of the ways they played it is just they played very socially. They played it with other people. As you say, they played it with their girlfriend or their boyfriend or whatever. And that's great. And the good thing about that is that we don't need to. They can play it however they like. If they want to do that, they can come to an arrangement themselves about. Sometimes it's I'll play and you tell me what to do, or we'll decide what to do together. Sometimes people would take a vote and they do whatever the majority decides. Sometimes people even have a kind of drinking games and things like that around it, which is all very cool. We have this mode, Movie Night, which allows you to take control of one character or more than one character, and you make all the decisions for that character, and we think that's really cool. But you don't have to play it that way, and you can make your own rules. You know.
But there's never a scene in the game where the players have. If you play a way out, you know probably what I mean. If they decide to take the road or going under the bridge, they have to do it together. There are things you do in co-op mode, of course, that you have to make. It's not really so much, you know, A Way Out was a puzzle game in a lot of ways. So we wouldn't quite do that. We would branch. So everything you do matters and causes a branch. And if the two players don't agree on the right thing to do, that causes another branch. Do you see what I mean? Well, maybe because many branches means it's possible to play it more than once and have different experience, of course. But for just one playthrough, and there are many people who will just have one. How much playtime can they accept from first episode?
Yeah, so the solo mode and a movie night mode are 4 to 5 hours long, so it's playable through in an evening or over a couple of evenings. The co-op mode is a little bit shorter. It's 3.5 hours to 4 hours long.
Okay. Well, that seems okay for a game like this. But what's the price of the game? What will be the price of the game?
The price of the, can you help me with that one?
It's €29.99.
29.
Euros, 29.99 euros. Yeah.
And it's just for the first episode.
That's for one episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just one last thing. You're using the Unreal Engine, I think. And I saw there are some minor things we know from Unreal Engine, like where's texture blow-ups and so on. We won't see that in the final game.
No, you won't. We're fixing all those things now. The Unreal Engine has been brilliant for us. It allows us to bring the game to a number of different platforms. So we've got one on PS4, Xbox and PC, and the Unreal Engine has given us that. And it's great for animation as well. Animation is so important for us to get the realistic movement and the realistic facial capture. Unreal's fantastic for that. You were playing production code, and there is a team working on fixing all that stuff up. So, yeah.
And because there are different platforms, are there any plans for cross-platform play?
I'm afraid not.
PC
No,
and PS4?
we don't have cross-platform play.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, then thank you very much for the interview, and we are pretty looking forward to your game.
Great, thank you.